सिन्दूरारुणविग्रहां त्रिनयनां माणिक्यमौलिस्फुरत् तारानायकशेखरां स्मितमुखीमापीनवक्षोरुहाम् पाणिभ्यामलिपूर्णरत्नचषकं रक्तोत्पलं बिभ्रतीं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् परामम्बिकाम् सान्निपातिकज्वर सततज्वर विषमज्वर ग्रह नक्षत्र दोषाञ्चान्या हर हर काली सर सर गौरी धम धम विद्ये आले माले काले बन्धे भज भज विद्ये मख मख विद्ये नाशय नाशय पापम् हर हर दुःस्वप्नम् विध्वंसय विध्वंसय विघ्नविनाशिनि रजनी सन्ध्ये बन्धुभिनादे मानस्तोषे मानसवेगे शङ्खिनी चक्रिणी वज्रिणी गदिनी शूलिनी अपमृत्युविनाशिनी विश्वेश्वरी द्राविडी केशवदयिते पशुपति सहिते भीममर्दिनि धवनी कामिनी शबरी विराटी वाचस्पति ॐ द्रं द्रं झं झं द्रं द्रं ॐ द्रं गुरु गुरु
Namaste, Suprabhatam, and a warm welcome to all our participants who are joining us this morning at our place in India, Bengaluru. It's a morning here, and many of you have joined from different parts. It's noon or it's evening. Thank you all for joining us for a lovely session. We are on the 36th day of Global Festival of Yoga, which started on the International Yoga Day, that is 21st June 2020. And since then, we have been continuing our Yogathon, exploring multiple dimensions of yoga. As you all know, Indica Yoga is a platform which offers diverse and inclusive forms of yoga that is authentic, immersive, and transformative in nature. And we also believe no aspect of life can be left out of the fold of yoga. Yoga has to touch and transform every aspect of our life and our being. In this context, we have been exploring even the so-called mundane activities. We saw how walking can be yoga, how speech can be yoga, how dancing, how listening to music or participating in music can be yoga. And yesterday we had a wonderful session with Chef Manjit Singh Gill on food is yoga or food is auspicious. And we continue our engagement with food. And today we have a very interesting session on Annam Bohukurvita, the yoga of sharing abundant food by none other than Sri Chanchalapati Prabhuji. I request Chanchalapati Prabhuji to kindly come on screen.
Namaste.
Namaste Prabhuji.
Namaste to all of you. Very happy to be here. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for joining us. Chanchalapati Prabhuji is a known name, especially those who know ISKCON, those who know the work of Akshaya Patra Foundation. They know and recognize him very well. But I would like to just make a formal introduction to Chanchalapati Prabhuji. Chanchalapati Prabhuji is the Vice Chairman of the Akshaya Patra Foundation and Senior President of ISKCON Bangalore, Senior Vice President of ISKCON Bangalore. He has been working in the field of spiritual education since 1984 and in the areas of social development and education even more intensely from 2000 onwards. Although he had been passionate about science since his school days, he became introduced to Indian spirituality as an undergraduate student in PSG College of Technology, Coimbatore. Impressed by the profound concepts of spirituality, he pursued the same even more vigorously while doing his master's program in electrical communication engineering at the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. He joined ISKCON in 1984, became involved in Akshay Patra in 2000, which has become the largest school meal program feeding over 1.8 million. I mean, I just want you to note the numbers. It's 1.8 million underprivileged children in 12 states and 2 union territories in 51 locations in nearly 20,000 government and government aided schools in the country. Those who know Akshay Patra, I mean, it's just not enough that you have known it, but you should really see it to experience what it is, especially when you think about the scale, the quality, the precision. I mean, each thing is taken to its perfection there. It's one of the unique experiments of the whole world, I must say. So we have students from various top universities across the world who visit the Akshay Patra work and try to make case studies of it. Just last year, Akshay Patra celebrated serving 2 billion meals. So Prabhuji will be taking through many of these, taking us through many of these aspects. Prabhuji was able to combine his values of compassion from his spiritual learning with his education in technology and apply the same to create social development organization like Akshay Patra Foundation. He continues to research, teach, and talk extensively on spirituality, social development, and the intersection of science and spirituality. So this is Prabhuji in brief. I would not stand in between you and Prabhuji now. I request Prabhuji to kindly lead us on this fascinating topic, Annam Bohukurvita. This is a line from Taittiriya Upanishad which says, prepare food in abundance. And what do you do with it? Serve and share. And that's where the joy comes. And Prabhuji will lead us through this. Thank you, Prabhuji. Over to you now.
Thank you, Vinay, for that introduction. And I'm happy to participate in this Indica Yoga festival. And yes, Annam Bahukurvita is the theme of our discussion today. We are all familiar and confronted, especially in our country, in India, and maybe other parts of the world. There is poverty, there is starvation. There are many different kinds of difficulties and problems. Now we are going through a pandemic, and the pandemic has had economic impact, social impact, including in our country and maybe even many developed countries too. So why is all this happening? How is all this happening? I wanted to begin with the very well-known verse from the Upanishad. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnamevavashishyate. This Upanishad describes that there is that Purna, the source, the Param Satya, which is Purna, complete and perfect. Om Purna Madaha, that is complete and perfect, that Param Satya. And very surprisingly, the Upanishad says, Purnamidam, this world, this cosmos, this world, this society we live in is also Purnam, complete and perfect. Purnat Purnama Udachyate. This Purna, this material cosmos is a Purna, and it has Purnat Udachyate. It has come from that absolute truth, Param Satya. And Purnasya Purnamadaya, although this complete and perfect world has come from that complete and perfect Purna, Purnam eva avashishyate, and that complete still remains Purna. So that is Purna, this is Purna, this Purna has come from that Purna, and although this Purna has come from that Purna remains Purna. This is the interesting Upanishad. So now, the question is that this world doesn't appear to be Purna, isn't it? We have so many shortcomings, we have so many problems, and so how do we explain that this world is Purna? So Acharyas have explained how to understand this. And particularly, as Vinay pointed out, I was introduced to Indian philosophy through the teachings of my spiritual master, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And he wrote extensively in English language and tried to create the awareness of Krishna and the Bhagavad Gita and the message of the Vedanta all over the world. And so he writes in his commentary on the Isha Upanishad that all kinds of incompleteness and imperfection is experienced and perceived in this world because of the incomplete and imperfect comprehension and understanding and appreciation of the complete and perfect plan, of the complete and perfect source, absolute truth, from which this material creation has emanated. It is because of our incomplete understanding and comprehension of the complete and perfect plan, of the complete whole, from which this has come. So in other words, all of our social, political, economic, cultural, personal, professional, at every level problems exist simply because we don't have a complete comprehension and understanding of the plan. And that plan is a complete and perfect plan, Purna plan. And because we are having an Apurna understanding of that, we experience all kinds of Apurnata in this Purna Jagat, which is a creation of the Purna Purushottama. So Annam Bahukurvita is one of the important premises because it is Anna which sustains all living entities. Every few hours, we need some Anna going into our system, because that anna creates the energy by which our sensual, mental, intellectual faculties can function. And if there is any interruption in the supply of that energy, we will be so harassed, we will be so dismayed, we will be so distressed, and we will start pursuing those in different ways, that it will distract us and cripple us from the real pursuit of human life, which is understanding of that Purna and the Purna's plan for this world and for the living entities. This is a yoga festival, and yoga is about linking up with that Purna, linking up with that complete whole. How we can link, that link is called the yoga. And you see that yoga can be that link can be a weak link, which can be severed very easily, or it can be a firm, inseparable, fully mature link. So according to the appetite, spiritual appetite, the appetite for linking up. So many people think, why I should be linked with the Supreme? I'll just do my own thing in this world. There is nothing called the Supreme. I'm here and I'm flapping my wings for a while, and after some time the flapping of my wings ceases, and that's all. That is the end of it. So there are people who think like that. But then our Vedic perspective, Vedic culture presents that that's a very, very incomplete and insufficient explanation of what's happening in this world, in this complex, completely coordinated, completely synchronized with many, many complex systems, and very artistically created. There is a purpose behind that. And human beings are endowed with that very special cognitive powers, which other living entities don't have. And our cognitive powers are meant to comprehend that Supreme and discover our relation with that Supreme and experience that relation. It is not just some kind of a theoretical framework that our Vedic literatures and the Upanishads present. Like in the Gita, Krishna says, Gnanam teham savignanam idam vakshamya sheshataha yagnatva bhuyonyati gnatavyam avashishyate. Now I shall present to you that knowledge and jnana and vijnana sahitam. Not just theoretical knowledge, but a process by which that knowledge precipitates into realization, where we begin to experience and perceive that reality, that ultimate supreme reality, absolute reality, with which we have a relationship. It's not that we are unrelated, just like children are related to parents, with a strong bonding of relationship. Mother provides for the child depends on the mother, and the mother and the child intensely love each other. You take away the child from the mother is full of anxiety. The child is full of anxiety, and you unite them together. They're happy, and that union is the yoga. In the same way, we are having a relation with that Supreme, but now we have disconnected ourselves. We have separated ourselves. So we are in agony, and bringing us together will once again reestablish our relation and make us happy. And all of this is possible in the human form of life because animals don't have that opportunity to experience these things. And hence, human society has to be provided with this very basic life-sustaining source, which is Anna. And that Anna has to be produced in abundance. And after producing it in abundance, it should be shared with everyone. Our acharyas have pointed out, if we look around us, actually we don't find starvation in other living species. We see countless bugs, countless schools of fishes. We are all familiar with the National Geographic and such other images where under the ocean, there are thousands and sometimes millions of fishes. And we find insects, birds, beasts. There are elephants which require huge quantities of food every day. But we don't see starvation in the way we see in some parts of human society. Even today, our United Nations goals, one of the goals is to remove extreme poverty. And of course, human society has achieved some degree of success we can talk about. But it's a fact that human society has gone through extreme poverty, or maybe even now going through extreme poverty in pockets. And those pockets may be big in present times. So another Upanishad says, Nityo Nityanam, Chetanas Chetananam, Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadhati Kaman. So there is that one supreme Purna, and there are many Chetana in this world, that is referring to the living entities. And Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadhati Kaman. And that one is the provider of the different desires of the many. So that supreme Purna is seem to be providing abundant necessities of all living entities. But somehow the human beings, we are caught up in these complex problems. And the acharyas point out, it is simply because we have not grasped, we have not understood what is the complete plan of the complete whole. And without understanding that, we are making imperfect plans on the basis of our imperfect intelligence and understanding. And as a result, there is discordance, disharmony, dissonance of various kinds that we see in this world. Whereas the living entities, other kinds of subhuman living entities, they are simply surrendered to the divine plan, and hence their necessities are taken care. So one of the aspects of the divine plan is that Annam Bahukurvita, Anna Bahulya, we must produce. And in fact, it doesn't take too much effort. Those who have had an experience, an understanding of agriculture and horticulture, they experience that there are certain seasons at which there is an intensity of work. If you take a 1 year span, maybe about 4, 5, 6 months, there is intense work. Even that is not very intense. Pockets of intense work. But then there is plenty of time available for introspection. And that tranquility is needed for such introspection. And hence, Vedic culture encouraged abundant production of food and abundant free distribution of food. It is said that every grihastha, it is the duty of the grihastha, at noon, he should go out of the house and call out, is there anyone hungry around? And if someone shows up and says, yeah, I'm hungry, the grihastha must first feed the atithi as if he is God. And after the atithi is fully satisfied, then the householder must have his food. This is the value in our culture. So there cannot be shortage of food. That was the culture of our country. Three important things are required in our world: food, education, and medicines, because there is always some kind of a disease coming about. And it is said that in the Vedic culture, all three were made available to everyone free of cost. No one has to worry about food. Education is provided free, and health also practiced by some of the saintly persons in the society who would share medicines and herbal solutions and Ayurvedic solutions for the wellness of the human society. So these were some of the wonderful values in our culture. And during introduction, you would have heard about, I was not so much into Indian philosophy. I was so fascinated by science. And I never expected that sometime in my life, I'll have this kind of a hairstyle and this kind of a robe. Because I was thinking that I'm going to seriously pursue science and do some research or something like that. But then at some point in my life, I got introduced to Indian philosophy, and I began to see certain profound concepts in Indian philosophy. And my spiritual master began to teach different things I began to learn. And there was one interesting anecdote in the life of my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, who is the founder of ISKCON. And this was in the year 1970s, well before I came in touch with Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada had inaugurated a temple of Krishna in a very, very rural place in our country, in India, in West Bengal, in a place called Mayapur. Mayapur is the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, another very, very great saint. In fact, Srila Prabhupada and ISKCON comes in the parampara tradition of Chaitanya. And so Srila Prabhupada had inaugurated the Krishna temple in Mayapur. Mayapur is on the bank of Ganges, very beautiful place. And it is about 120 kilometers from Kolkata. And so naturally for that inaugural program, there were a lot of guests who had come from Calcutta. And on the day of the Prana Pratishta of the Krishna Vigraha in the temple, at noon there was a big feast served to all the guests. And Srila Prabhupada was in his personal quarters when suddenly he heard dogs barking and children crying out outside his window. And Prabhupada walked up to the window and he saw this, his quarters were on the first floor, and he peered down and looking at the ground level. After the feast, banana leaves were strewn across, and there were poor village children shooing away stray dogs to capture some food, to gather some food. And when Srila Prabhupada saw that, he was shocked and he was very moved. Prabhupada was very, very compassionate. He felt deeply for the pains of others. In fact, seeing that, there were tears in his eyes. Immediately, he called for the leaders of ISKCON at that time, and he pointed out, just see how hungry these children must be. They have come over from the nearby villages, hearing that there is a big festival going on here in this temple, and they are trying to gather some food from the leftover. And then he turned to the leaders of ISKCON and he said, we have invited the Lord to come and reside in our temple today. And the Lord is the Father of everyone. And where there is Father, there should be no hunger, and there should be no shortage of food, especially for children. And at that time, he gave a mandate to the leaders of ISKCON. You leaders should ensure that no one in a 10-mile radius of a Krishna temple, especially children, no one should go hungry. And so this was the mandate, this was the directive, institutional directive that Srila Prabhupada had given in ISKCON. And ISKCON followers have all along been distributing food in different occasions. And Srila Prabhupada had instituted this food distribution in different parts of the world. That's why one of the innovative things that Srila Prabhupada did, some of you who are from overseas who are participating in this must be familiar. A very innovative thing that Prabhupada did, he created many temples of Krishna around the world. And in most of the temples, especially in the Western countries, he created a restaurant. It's an unusual combination, a temple and a restaurant. We find a lot of difficulty convincing municipal authorities in different places in our country, in India, because they think that temple is a religious, dharmic place and a restaurant is a commercial establishment. How the two can coexist? And then they come to our place and they say, no, here we can tax here. How can we tax here? How can we not tax? They get confused. The reason Srila Prabhupada did that was, in India, you can freely distribute food, annadan you can do, and there is a lot of recipients very respectfully take. People come to your temple and take, because that's part of our culture. You go to your temple and you get some prasadam. You are looking forward, in fact, for prasadam, and you honor prasadam, you respectfully accept it. But in Western countries, when he was inviting Westerners to come and participate and understand Indian culture, they don't have this understanding. So they may feel that, something is giving freely, free food is something they may not so respectfully take it. So Prabhupada said, let's have a feature in our temples where people can come, they sit very comfortably, fine dining places, and they get Indian food, or maybe even Western food. It's food, after all, anna, which is sanctified by offering to God. And so these restaurants provide sanctified food, and so that people can respectfully accept and acknowledge that all of this is actually coming from God. You see, we may make computers, we may make mobile phones, we may have robotics and all kinds of technology things we may do. I remember in Bangalore, because I come from Bangalore, as you know, and Bangalore is a big place for IT, like a few other cities in our country. And we have every year big IT fairs, and it's there in the newspapers, and a lot of people come from all over the world to participate in these IT big fairs and expos and such things. And invariably, one of the newspapers had reported that there was a lot of technology talk and business and commerce and government policies about technology transfer. All of those big sophisticated talk would happen. But every now and then, although they're talking about Intel and Intel chips and many other things, every now and then they had to grab potato chips. They had to grab some food finally, and to keep themselves going. And these potato chips and the food and different other things that people have to eat, they are not industrial products. They are all gifts of God. If God did not provide the earth, if God did not provide the air, God did not provide the sunlight, God did not provide the seed, we would not have all of these food. And so food is so fundamental in every society. And hence, creation of food, recognition that the food has come from God, food is a gift of God, and recognition of God, and creation of more and more food, and sharing this food with everybody. It's after all God's creation. Whatever we have, let's share with others. And in this way, we shall be happy. This is the sentiment. This is the value. This is the thinking of Vedic culture. And so Srila Prabhupada wanted us to distribute food. And that is how it led to the creation of the Akshaya Patra program. And I will quickly run through the Akshaya Patra journey and how it developed and how what we have been doing, and in the form of a short presentation with all of you. As you're all familiar, Akshaya Patra, the word comes from the Mahabharata, a pot from which we can draw unlimited food and share with the world, which has taken the form of a midday meal program in government schools in our country. This is our temple in Bangalore for those of you who have visited. And this is the place where Akshaya Patra began in a very, very small way. And the thought was that we had a festival kitchen, which was used about 10 days in a year. And we were prompted by one of our donors, one of our well-wishers who visited us and said that, why don't we distribute food? Why don't you distribute food to children? And that's how we started cooking food in the festival kitchen and started distributing food in about 5 government schools on the outskirts of Bangalore city. We were feeding about maybe 1,500 children. And at that time, we had no idea. We were familiar that Prabhupada wanted us to distribute food. And so we were feeding some children in government schools. We all know in our country, very poor families send their children to a government school. If they can afford a little money, they send them to a private school. And so we were going to these government schools and distributing food. And I remember when I went to some of those government schools and talked to the headmasters and headmistresses there. And we told them, this was in the year 2000, 20 years ago. We told them that we want to come and feed children. And they were surprised. They said, they thought that, they are used to sometimes somebody's birthday, somebody comes from the Rotary Club, some of these good organizations in the world. They go and distribute food on some particular day, distribute some sweets. Something. So they thought that we are telling, and we are coming from the ISKCON temple and distributing food one day in this school. We said, no, we want to come every day and feed your children. They were surprised and they said, oh, please come. And at that time, there was no cooked meal program in all states in the country. There were a few states. Tamil Nadu had, Gujarat had, and a few other states and parts of the country might have had. So the teachers were pleasantly surprised and they welcomed us, and we started feeding in those 5 schools. And we got feedback, and there was many volunteers of our temple. They would go and distribute and come back. And then every other day or every week, I would seek feedback. What's happening? How are the children liking it? And different things like that. And the feedback we received was that we started in the month of July of 2000. In fact, for those who are even more curious, we started on the day of Jagannath Rath Yatra. The day Jagannath Rath Yatra was happening at Puri, we started the Akshaya Patra program in Bangalore, feeding these children. And the first response we got was July, is the beginning of the academic year in the schools in our country. And the first feedback we got was that the news had spread in the village that a complete meal is being provided in the school, and hence more children have started coming to the school because of the meal being available. And the second feedback was the children have become very energetic because of the good food they get. And the third feedback was that the teachers have become very enthusiastic and energized because the children are energetic and energized. And so they have also become inspired to teach better. So these few simple things like that inspired us that, looks like what we are doing is very, very important and we should continue to feed. And we continued feeding. And then in a few months, we started getting letters from other school headmasters who would write, "We see your vehicle carrying the food pass in front of our school. Can you please stop and feed our children in our school too?" And then, when you get this kind of letters written by a headmaster, we didn't have any clear plan. We just put them aside and we started getting more letters, and we opened a folder and put all these letters in those folders, and we just didn't bother. And letters would come, put them in the folder, and that was business as usual. After a few months, we looked up at the folder and we found that there were so many requests, and there were requests for about maybe 30,000 children. We were shocked because although, in our country, there is so much poverty all around us, we are pretty insensitive to it. And being Bangalore, IT capital of the country, we didn't realize that there is so much need of food. And it was at that time the present chairman of Akshaya Patra, Madhu Pandit Das, who also had a technology background. He's from IIT Bombay. And so he designed the first kitchen where we can prepare 30,000 meals. And it was actually very daunting. In fact, some people advised us, be careful, Swamiji. You can start a program with a lot of excitement, but to sustain the program is not easy. To feed day after day, you will come under financial stress. And anyway, because we were all inspired by our Acharya's words, God is the provider of everyone and God is Purna. Where is the shortage for God to provide for his children? So with faith in God, and we started off. And that's how the midday meal Akshaya Patra program began. We started feeding 30,000. Today we feed about 2 lakh children in Bangalore. And gradually we got more and more involved, and then we developed the vision for this program, that no child in India shall be deprived of education because of hunger. So we wanted to address two important issues. One is hunger, another is education, so that children get educated. And once educated, you come out of the poverty cycle. So as I was mentioning, we began with 1,500 children. And today we are feeding 1.8 million children every day. We are in 12 states and 2 union territories in 51 locations. These are the different states we are in. This is a slightly old, we are also in Madhya Pradesh, and we are just in discussion to start a second kitchen in Madhya Pradesh. In South India, we provide a South Indian menu: rice, sambar, yogurt or curds. And in North India, we give roti, dal, sabji, vegetable. The idea is that, as we know in our country, we have different kinds of food habits in different parts of the country. Every 500 kilometers you travel, you will come to a new language, a new food habit, new dressing habit, new art, new culture. That's the beauty of our country. So we want to be sensitive to children's preferences. It's not that you children, after all, you're poor children, whatever we give you, you should eat. No, we don't want to have that attitude. We want to be respectful to the children's preferences, local preferences. So we give in Odisha an Odia meal. We give in Gujarat a Gujarati meal. So we give the meal that the children prefer. And in the last 20 years, we have been setting up kitchens like this, where we can cook large quantity of food, maybe 25,000 meals in a few hours, or 50,000 meals, or sometimes if the density of population and school density, children population is high, we go up to 100,000 children feeding from one kitchen. So these are big rice cauldrons. This can prepare rice for about 1,000 students' requirement in about 15 minutes. And the entire handling is in a very hygienic manner. I have a small video clip. This is a kitchen in Jaipur. This is the rice cooking section. We have industrial steam boilers that produce steam, which is used for cooking rice. And there is a tilting gear mechanism, and the cauldron tilts, and the rice is emptied into a trolley, and from the trolley into a large stainless steel trough, and from the trough rice is filled into those containers which go to the school. So you can see that there is very minimum human handling to ensure food safety. In a kitchen where we are feeding about, say, 100,000 meals, we consume about 5 tons of vegetables every day. And so the previous day, the vegetables are cut, and to keep them fresh, they are put in a cold storage facility like this, so that the vegetables remain fresh. And the next day, we have even bigger cauldrons to prepare dal or sambar, like these, which can prepare sambar for 6,000 students in about 2 hours' time. This is the dal cooking section in one of our kitchens. This is in Vrindavan, Mathura. This is the big cauldron where pulses, lentils, vegetables, all of that is put together and it is cooked. These are very large cauldrons. You can't make out in this video. About 3 people can get into the cauldron. Of course, we don't let anyone get in. It's that big. And the dal pours into the tank, and from the tank into the container. As I was mentioning, we began in South India, and it was quite easy to do rice and sambar and yogurt in South India. But when we went to the north, we had to make rotis. And as we all know, at home, our mothers make rotis, one at a time, few at a time. And we had to find somebody who can make a roti making machine. Today, we have machines which can make 40,000 rotis per hour. And at that time, the biggest roti machine we came across, there was no roti machines. There were mostly papad making machines were there. And we invested in 3 different such manufacturers. 2 failed, 1 succeeded. And we made further improvements over the years. I'll show you a small video clip of the roti making machine. This is the wheat flour kneading machine. And this can knead about 50 kilos at a time of wheat flour. And this dough is put into the hopper of this machine. And there are a series of rollers. It is flattened between these rollers. And it comes out like a sheet. And this is die cut. And it is transferred onto a heated metal conveyor. It gets cooked from below. And then at the far end of the conveyor, it flipped onto the second side. And the third conveyor is a mesh conveyor where the roti comes in touch with the fire and puffs up like it's done at home. And the unused portion of the dough is taken back to the hopper and reused. And this machine is about 30 feet long. And at the far end of the machine, you will see hot rotis coming out. And these women are collecting them. And to keep them soft, we also apply oil. In fact, we have our new machines which have an automatic oil sprinklers. And the rotis are put into these containers. They are weighed and they're ready to be transported to the schools. We have conveyor belts. We have certain amount of mechanization because we have to handle a large quantity of food in a short while. And these vessels have a tight fitting lid and they are brought outside the kitchen to the loading bay. And we have custom built vehicles like this. In fact, there is a certain sequence in which the vessels have to be loaded depending on the sequence of school that this vehicle goes to. In a few days, our people get used to that. And by about 9 o'clock, the vehicles leave the kitchen premises to carrying the food to the schools. And before midday, the food is delivered to the schools. And we have a fleet of vehicles, about 500 plus vehicles of different sizes in different parts of the country. And that's the kitchen on the background. And these vehicles travel about 20, 25, 30 kilometers. And the food is delivered. And in the past, we used to have teachers, but now we have more specially appointed people to distribute the food. Children can come for an unlimited meal. They can come for a second time, third time. As long as they don't waste food, they can come for any number of times. And all the children sit together and have a meal happily. And after the children have had the meals, the vessels are brought back to the kitchen and there's an elaborate washing process with hot water and detergents. And these vessels are washed. A lot of women are involved in this. And it is stacked and kept ready for the next day's use. 17 kitchens, maybe a few more have been added, are ISO certified to ensure we have good process and food safety measures. Many universities from around the world have come and visited our kitchens. 3 students and 1 professor visited our kitchen, and they prepared from Harvard Business School, and they prepared a case study, which is there on their website. In fact, they have updated their case studies too. And many other IIMs in India have also prepared case studies. We operate in a public-private partnership. That's one of the important reasons why we could scale this program. In the year 2003, 2004, there was certain important policy changes in our country, and it was mandated that the state had to provide a cooked meal to every student in a government school. And so the government started supporting our program. And so we get about 60% of our running cost from the government, and the 40% we raise, this is what we get in different parts of the state for the running of the program. And the balance we raise from individuals, donors, corporate donors. And for setting up of those large kitchens also, we need support from the private donors. And to ensure that everyone gets food, we provide food in the government schools so that regardless of religion, culture, language, gender, our idea is that we must feed everyone. And to ensure transparency, because we receive money from the government, we have KPMG as our auditor, and our internal auditors are E&Y. And we have received 5 consecutive years Gold Shield Award for excellence in financial reporting in the NGO sector. And we entered the Hall of Fame of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. We are the only NGO to have made it to the Hall of Fame. And we have received many other awards by the grace of God. The impact of the program has been manifold. Reduce classroom hunger so that children can focus on education. Teachers focus on academics so that otherwise teachers are hassled with taking care of the cooking of the meal and serving the meal, so on. School enrollment has gone up, school attendance has improved, dropout rate has decreased, classroom performance has improved, and nutritional status of the student has improved. 86% of the students said the key reason they come to school was meal. In 2017, in Mumbai, Thane, like this, there are a lot of research conducted by different colleges, and all of them show that it has had important impact. In Bangalore, when we started the program, enrollment went up by 23%. In Jaipur, over 2 years, enrollment went up by 28%. In Vrindavan, underweight children population came down. In Bangalore too, underweight population of boys and girls came down. Not underweight children number went up. A large percentage of the children that we serve have household income of less than 5,000 rupees or 3,000 rupees. 18% of the children in Jaipur also said they would not have attended school if there were no meals. And at some point in the year 2012, we had served 1 billion cumulative meals. And we had a small celebration around that. And Sri Narayan Murthy, who is also one of our supporters, Infosys, and their own personal funds, Sudha Murthy and Narayan Murthy are our supporters. He spoke in that event. And in 2016, we had served the 2nd billionth meal, and the president of our country, Sri Pranab Mukherjee, came and served the 2nd billionth meal. And in 2019, we served the 3rd billionth meal, and we had our Honorable Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, come and distribute to children. This happened in Mathura. He wanted to distribute in a place which was close to Delhi for him. And so in 2019, we had this, he came to Mathura and he distributed to children. We had President Bill Clinton visit us in Jaipur in 2014. We had President Abdul Kalam, and he sat with the children and had meals on a banana leaf. And we have had many other celebrities come and distribute. Another thing that we have always done from Akshay Patra is that whenever there has been natural disasters, floods, accidents, and such occasions, government looks upon us and we cook large quantity of food. And now during the COVID, also we have been involved in distributing food, both cooked food and dry rations. So we have spread all over the country. In the last 3.5 months, we have served 72 million meals, both cooked meals and grocery kits in about 65 places all over the country, as you can see. And these are pictures of our team reaching out groceries to very far off places across the country: Northeast, Mizoram, Tripura, Assam, Gujarat, Dharavi, Mumbai, Pune, and all over the country. And just a few days ago, we started distributing something known as the Happiness Box. The government is providing rice and dal, and we add a few other things into a box, and oil and masala and spices and few other things which is required to make a full meal. And we also add a few workbooks according to the different grades, because children are now, schools are not running because of the pandemic. So we asked the parents to come to the school, and we gave them a box which had other groceries and some soap and few other things, sanitary requirements, so that cleanliness is an important aspect today in this situation we are all in. And we also gave some workbook, and so that the children, it is for 1 month, and the child should fill the workbook. And once if the parents come and submit the completed workbook next month, they will get another grocery kit, Happiness Box. So that's the system we have created. So we have a board of trustees. We have 3 of us, missionary executive trustees. We also have a few independent trustees. We have an advisory board with former Chief Justice of India and many other eminent people as advisors. Today we are feeding 1.8 million children every day in about 20,000 government schools. Our aspiration is to feed 5 million children every day. And with this, we come to the end of the program, of my presentation. And I'll be happy to take any questions if people have about the program or anything else we have discussed.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for this wonderful story and a fascinating journey that you took us through. I have been familiar with the work, and I visit the Akshay Patra Kitchen, Akshay Patra Foundation often, but every time I listen to this story, I just get goosebumps. So thank you very much for that.
Most welcome. Most welcome. It's a very, very big team. There are about over 100 volunteers like me, and there are about 6,000 very dedicated employees. It's all of this big team that makes it happen. I make presentations and I talk to people, but what we are able to do is because of this very dedicated effort of the volunteers and the employees and the grace of God.
Truly. In fact, we see many things coming together. It's the compassion, the concern for the society, and the need to come up with one's own indigenous solutions rather than the set solutions that is provided from elsewhere, and also bringing in science and technology and adopting it in this context. I think all these things put together is what one example that we get to see as the Akshay Patra model.
That's true. You have rightly said it. It's a it's a confluence, it's a sangama. It's a confluence of technology, compassion that comes from our culture, and good management practices, dedication, devotion, and thinking about our responsibility for the country. And all of these elements have come together in Akshay Patra. And we all, as you know, to feed this many children, the amount of money that we have to raise, we need about 200 crores every year over and above what the government gives us. So it's not a small task. It's a very, very daunting task. It is the goodness of people. It's the goodness of the innumerable donors who also empathize and feel for this cause and come forward to support. It's a really very bewildering thing. That's why, as I was telling in the beginning, this world is Purna. We have made it Apurna because we have not understood. We have become greedy. We are holding too many things. All these kind of things are happening in the world. And hence, if we have this attitude of the abundance, everything about God and God's creation is abundant. If we align ourselves with God's plan, then we have solutions for all the problems of the world. And with His blessing, we will be able to have good life now and achieve perfection in our life.
Prabhuji, I was just looking at the numbers. Like the first billionth meal came up in 2012. That is 12 years since the work started.
Yeah.
And then the second billionth meal just in the matter of next 4 years, that is 2016. And the third billionth was in 2019, in less than 3 years.
Right.
So like there is an enormous rate at which it is growing. And the scaling up is possible only when you have excellent systems in place.
True.
So, and also like one of the definitions of yoga is yoga karmasu kaushalam.
Yes.
So
Yes.
how did you bring about this scale and also the precision and some good practices that you would like to share with all our friends?
Yes. As I was telling you, in the beginning, we found that there was a need for a large number of children. And so we decided we should build a kitchen which can prepare 30,000 meals. Another important thing we realized was that in our country, all the problems are of big scale.
True.
Actually, our political leaders also, they have evolved a lot of good policies, good programs. In fact, we always tell, we are not a poor country. Even in economic terms, we are a very rich country, but the irony is that we have a lot of poor people. So there is this imbalance in the distribution of God-given property, God-given wealth. So it is because of that, there is a lot of money behind different government programs, lakhs of crores. And but unfortunately, the challenge, because we are a very, very densely populated country, the challenge is how to execute and how to deliver the benefits of the good programs the government has conceived to the last mile. And that is where civic society organizations and every one of us have to play that role, working with the government and to make the good programs reach the people who need them. I think that's one of the things and then we realize that if we have to make any impact in the country, we have to conceive of programs on big scale. We can do things on a big scale when we have technology and as you rightly pointed out, good systems and processes and management practices. These are some of the important principles that we have always followed. And as a result, today, by God's grace, the governments have a lot of confidence in us, and they invite us to come and feed, and people have confidence in us. And so that's how it has been. We realize that things have to be done on scale. We kept always doing things on scale. And that is one of the reasons why you see that happening quickly. And so there is so much more to be done in our country in every field. In fact, if you take the field of education, field of food, field of healthcare, housing, you think about any field, our culture has something to say and offer, and something that we must all be engaged in. Prabhupada used to say, my mission is to make people happy. The spreading of happiness was the mission of our acharyas. That's our culture, isn't it? How to make the world happy, how to make everyone happy. So we are actually inheritors of this culture. And so we all should be impelled by that force that we have to make the world happy. And so these are a few things that have been guiding us and driving us.
Prabhuji, you were mentioning about the restaurants. I have visited the Govinda's restaurant in many European countries.
Yes.
And I have been the beneficiary of it, especially to look for vegetarian food outside. It's so difficult, and Govinda's is always like an oasis. But I had never thought about this connection, why ISKCON has come up with this idea of having restaurants. But only when you mentioned it today, I mean, I'm just baffled. I mean, I'm astounded with the vision that Prabhupada ji had. Like even the cultural context where a temple is not known, to come up with restaurants where people can come, good food. And I think we all have heard that stomach is the closest way to the heart, but I think he put this into action.
Yes, absolutely. You're right. You're right. That is true. You know, the Prabhupada was very, very expert in cultural adaptations. And when he went to the Western countries, and you know, they have a different kind of a musical practice, right? It's Western music. Could be modern, could be classical, whatever. It's Western music. When Prabhupada introduced Nama Sankirtana, you know, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu popularized that Nama Sankirtana to chant the names of God, and we chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Although Prabhupada had introduced very classically the Kartala and Mridanga and the harmonium, because that's the conventional Indian system. 500 years ago, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers, they would play harmonium, they would play thala kartal, brass kartal, and mridanga. But when he went to the Western countries, he encouraged them, you can use your Western instruments. Important thing is to glorify God, to chant the names of God. And he encouraged Western devotees to sing in their own culture, in their musical culture. And in the same way, he also said that you can offer food of your culture, but it has to be vegetarian, because, you know, for it to be sanctified, he had a few conditions. And he encouraged them to make, and devotees, Western devotees, quickly started making pastries and pizzas and all of those kinds. And they started, in fact, in our temple in Bangalore, if some of you have visited, we have a bakery, we have a baking facility, and we make all kinds of prasadam. And we have pizzas, and we have pastas, and we have noodles and varieties of, you know, baked items. In fact, some years ago, some priests from a temple, from a Vishnu temple in Bangalore, they were, were traditional pundits, and they came to our temple and they said, in our temple, Vishnu eats only puliogre and tair sadam, the tamarind rice and the curd rice. But in your temple, Krishna eats all other things. So we come here, we also want to eat those. So Prabhupada was very expert to make Indian culture, Indian philosophy attractive to the younger generation and to the people around the world. So, even today, when Prabhupada was there in the 70s, at that time, there was Beatles was very, very popular. And it was very popular music. And one of the important persons in Beatles was George Harrison. He met Prabhupada many times. And other Beatles also, John Lennon, they also met Prabhupada in London many times. And Prabhupada encouraged him, and he said that you are gifted with musical abilities. And we have one Veda entirely dedicated to music. It's musical Veda. And so you must use your musical talent to glorify God and Vedic message. And devotees, those days at that time, they collaborated with George Harrison, and they composed they composed a few, and one of them has become very popular. And they made a recording of one very ancient hymn from the Brahma Samhita. It's called Brahma Samhita. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu discovered that when he was traveling in South India, in a place called Thiruvattar, near Kanyakumari, in an ancient temple's library. And George Harrison composed the music for 2 or 3 of verses of Brahma Samhita, and it was sung by an American devotee, and she was a beautiful singer. And that song, Prabhupada was in America. They made a recording of that. Those days, those big gramophone record, and it was brought to Prabhupada, and then it had guitar, and it had all the musical, modern musical instruments. And they said Prabhupada was 75 plus, so he was very elderly, very senior and very elderly, coming from India, a very traditional background. But he was very open to all these new ideas, new, cultural adaptations and all that. So they played that music, and Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. That was the song, that was the refrain in that. And they played the song, and as Prabhupada heard, there were tears in his eyes. He was so moved to see his Western devotees, and they had learned these things, and they had composed the music with so much devotion. Maybe there were a little Sanskrit mistakes here and there, but Prabhupada said, it's all right. No, it's important. When the child calls out for mother, it's the intensity of the prayer that matters. The child makes a little mistake here and there in calling out the mother. Mother won't mind. She'll come and grab the child. So in the same way, that sincerity is important in calling out Krishna's names. And Prabhupada made a rule that this song should be played every day in all temples around the world for the morning Shringar Arati. We have one Arati called Shringar Arati after the Lord does morning Shringar. So we all come to the temple. And that song, it's about 6 minutes song. Even now, it is played in the speakers in every temple around the world. And it's a very wonderful composition. And so like this, Prabhupada made very, very interesting adaptations to make it attractive for the young people.
Prabhuji, I have one more quick question based on what you mentioned, and then request Subhuji to continue. You mentioned it short just now, and yesterday also we had a speaker, Chef Manjit Singh Gill, who is one of the known chefs of the world. Like
Yeah.
while speaking about food is auspicious, he said, bhavana, the attitude behind the production and the cooking is very, very important. And that makes a huge difference to the taste and the whole experience of eating. And here I have tasted the meals and like for many years, and it's one of the most delicious and hotly served food that even at 12 o'clock, what does children get at school is like it's tasty, it's hot, it's just the right things in right proportion. So is there any special training to that is given to the cooks who prepare the food or who are involved in this entire process? Like how is it so well served?
Yes, yes. It is. It is. There is a certain amount of training that all our food handlers go through, and every kitchen has a chef, an important person who takes care of some of these things. And there is a lot of training that happens. There's a lot
But
of
even in terms of some spiritual orientation to them, when that aspect is looked
there,
into.
it's absolutely true, as you rightly pointed out from the speaker, yesterday's speaker, from Chef Manjit Singh. It is said in the Shastras, the like you said, the bhavana, the consciousness enters the food. The consciousness of the cook enters the food in a very mystical way, and we impart that to the people. In fact, in most kitchens, people come to the to the kitchen. Our staff, they're all involved in chanting for a short while, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes before they go to the kitchen and start cooking. And they all come with this bhavana that this is a seva. We are
Mhm.
this seva for the children. I tell them, when I address big town hall meetings of Akshay Patra, I tell them, you see, children are precious to the parents. For anyone, I'm sure, who are all hearing here, who are mothers and fathers, for them, the most precious thing is their children. And they have so much concern for their children. And these parents have allowed us to feed one meal for their children. The most precious object in their lives is their children. And that precious thing, they have left it to us for us to feed. So much trust they have in us. So we have to do our duty with utmost dedication. And so we impart that one, and all the people feel that way. There are people who have been working with us for 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, 20 years. Some of them are there with us last 20 years. Simple jobs they were doing, but of course today they have risen to a supervisor or something like that. And so that now you are asking me how this comes up. I just want to do one small marketing, if you don't mind, with the permission of all the.
Please, please.
This Janmashtami is coming on 11th and 12th of August. And because our temples are closed, we can't allow people to come. It is not safe for people. So we have planned a 2-day online celebration of Krishna Janmashtami.
Wow.
People through all our ISKCON Bangalore website and Facebook and all of that. And one of the events we have planned, apart from music, dance, Abhishek, and all of those kind of things, we have planned one panel discussion, and we have called the food experts of the country, Chef Sanjeev Kapoor and a few others. And the topic of the discussion is, what makes ISKCON food so delicious? The topic is called Secrets of ISKCON Kitchen. So I don't want to let out that one. I want all those who want to attend that panel discussion where the secrets of ISKCON kitchens will be shared with the people. And so, yes, as you rightly pointed out, it's the bhavana. It is so important. And that makes the food very, very delicious. And that's what, our homes, mothers, wives, whoever is cooking for us, they bring that beauty of the motherhood, the beauty of womanhood. And of course, it's not, even men can do that one, it's not that. But naturally, women bring that out of their affection for the family members. And it's that which makes the magic. And so these are all very important aspects of our culture.
Yes, thank you, Prabhuji, for this wonderful, elaborate enlightenment on this aspect of the food as a spiritual sadhana, I would rather say, and how you have been able to take it to children especially, and build in them this entire culture through the concept of food. In this continuation, I had a couple of questions. Of course, some of these were getting answered by your answer to the other questions. Some of them were actually getting answered. That's what some of our participants, they have asked, and then they said, oh, thank you, I already got the answer for this. So, of course, one of the thing what I wanted to ask you is, you were telling about that how Srila Prabhupada brought this adaptability to the Western culture and all those things also, and introduced different food from different countries as well. And then, so today, rightly as you said, the traditional bhattachars from other Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, somebody who would come to, we also, like some of us who come from a traditional family, would want to taste the modern food items. So it's obviously ISKCON Bangalore, which has been our choice to have a chat or anything else. So, and all those, of course, pastries as well. So my question is, like, we have a traditional concept of some of the prasad, that this is what should be made in a temple, or this is what should be made, as a prasadam and all those things. So if you think, even at home, why not we prepare a pastry or something like that and offer it to Lord? No, parents, traditional people would say, no, this is what is mentioned in the Shastra and that is what we should give. Only the puliyogare, or only the curd rice, or only this, that. So when ISKCON introduced this such innovation in prasadam as such, and also as a meal in temple, is it not contradictory with our traditional schools of thought, with the Shastras?
Okay, very good question. If you take the Shastras, this is the beauty of our scriptures, this is the beauty of our literatures. Now, in Sanskrit, it allows for a latitude of interpretation. But in that latitude of interpretation, we should not lose the essence. Then you have lost everything. So, generally, it is said that the Shastras has to be understood in the light of the Acharya's explanation. And the Acharyas are not ordinary people like us, sadhakas. They are perfected souls, siddha jivas. They are enlightened people, they are perfected people. And such acharyas have the inspiration from the Lord to give right kind of an interpretation and allowance to it. So Krishna says there are two references in the Gita about this, about Anna and sanctifying that. One is Patram Pushpam Phalam Thoyam Yome Bhaktya Prayachati. So it is Patra Pushpa Phala. So it's basically, it is in that realm of vegetarian food. The second reference that Krishna makes is Yagna Shishtasano Santo Muchyante Sarva Kilbishai Gunjate Tvagham Papam Ye Pachanti Atmakaran. Yagna Shishta. The food that we eat should be a Yagna Shishta. It should be offered in sacrifice. Yagna and Yagna Shishta, the traditional meanings, we should not neglect the traditional meaning. Traditional meaning also we should pay respect to it. Is like what you said, performance of a yagna, and in that yagna, the havis is offered, and there is a yagna shishta, the leftover, which is honored as, which is accepted as prasada. In fact, the act of naivedya itself is a yagna. Yagna means, the heart of yagna, the essence of yagna is, I am not independent. I have received this from someone else who has given this to me. And I must have the sense of gratitude and offer it to the giver of all these things to me. That I am the Lord of it, I am the owner of it, I am the proprietor of it. No, this is given to me by someone else. And so I must thankfully offer it to the giver. And the ultimate giver is Param Brahma. And I must give it to the, offer it to the. So that Naivedya, that concept of Naivedya is itself hidden in that is Yagna. And that Yagna, Shishta, is the food. And it is Patram Pushpam Phalam. So traditionally, in fact, I have come across this because I come from a South Indian background. I can share that a little bit. If I don't know, if I'm exceeding my time and exceeding my brief, you should all alert me and I'll shut up.
No, Prabhuji, you can go ahead, please.
Please.
I come from South India and I came from a very South Indian traditional family, middle class family. And I have seen first time when I was introduced to Nama Sankirtana in ISKCON. This was in the 80s, right? 1981, first time I got introduced to. And when I came to an ISKCON temple and they were singing and dancing with lifting their hands up, it was all very, very strange. What is going on with these people? Why are they doing this kind of a worship? And so I was also a little bit, there's a cultural shock, right? You're not familiar with that. And then I used to read about Chaitanya, how he used to sing and dance in the streets and welcome everybody, play mridanga. I used to hear about that, but still, it's a mindset, right? Could not really adapt that. And even a lot of Indians I used to see those days, there was a lot of resistance to understand this. In fact, because I was coming from a South Indian culture and I was getting introduced to Chaitanya's culture, which is Gaudiya culture. And I wanted to make that leap of faith that yes, this is important, this is what Chaitanya is doing. So I used to go and meet a lot of scholars of Shankara school, scholars of Madhva school, scholars of Ramanuja school, and different schools. And later on, when I used to meet people in North India, others, Vallabhacharya school, Ramanandi Sampradaya school, different schools, I used to go and engage with them and talk to them and converse with them. And one South Indian scholar from Madhva school explained one song written by an ancient 500 years ago, one of the dasas. He said that Jagannath Dasa is 500 years ago from Karnataka only. He had composed a song where he sings, if you lie down, you chant Krishna's name always. And when you're lying down and then you say Krishna, Krishna becomes so pleased. He will stand up and hear you. And then if you stand up and chant Krishna's name, Krishna is so pleased that he begins to dance for your chanting of Krishna's name, standing and chanting. And if you raise your hands and sing and dance, calling out Krishna, Krishna says, I am yours. So it is there in the Vedic culture, Krishnot Kirtana Gana Nartana Paro. Gana, Nartana are all forms of Krishna Kirtana. It is there in our Vedic culture. Maybe we are not familiar.
Also, we also have a shloka like Vishnur Ganancha Nrityancha Natanancha Viseshataha.
Look at that.
Brahmana Jati Nam Kartavyam Nitya Karmavat.
Nitya Karma. So look at that. So this is Nartana, Gana, Nartana. This is all part of Indian culture. Maybe some people it has that familiarity is not there. And so when I heard this from our own Indian culture, this another thing, something that I was familiar with, it helped me to make up, better understand and assimilate and accept these things. So I see that from the 1980s, 1990s, 2000, 2010, 2020, Now I see a lot of young people very open, very quickly accept. You know, that initial, in the 80s, difficulties that we were having is not there in the young mindset of young people in our country. In our temple, we have about 3,000 young boys who are involved, and they all come on Sunday. They used to come. Now, because of the last 3 months, we don't have them here. And they come, and Sunday evening we have a traditional keeper. Our temple hall, which can hold about 500, 600 people, is filled with young boys singing and dancing. And they are all from all over India, North India, South India. Bangalore has people from everywhere. And so this, yes, in that way, like you pointed out, it's our parents and our grandparents in that generation. It's I think, a mindset. They are used to that kind of food. So they have that kind of a requirement maybe. So what we do in our temple, we also offer puliogre, we also offer, we depart from that. In addition, we also have cakes and pastries and pizzas and ice cream, and all of that is also offered to the Lord. So we do a combination. It's not that we want to completely go away from the original tradition, but patram pushpam phalam thoyam yagnashishtaha naivedyaha. These are important features which we have to do. And there is a process for doing it. One has to be very clean. One has to be properly chanting, and his heart has to be clean. And with that, in that way, following the Archana Vidhi, this is called Archana, and there are Pancharatra Vidhis are there. Different Narada Muni has created a method how this Narada Pancharatra Vidhi has to be performed. So following that Vidhi, we offer to the Lord. It is cooked according to the Vidhi offered to the Lord. So that way, I think young people are open to these kind of adaptations.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for this wonderful, insightful response. In fact, in the beginning, you made a short statement. It was sutra-like. I would just like to bring it to the attention of all our participants, because that was a very profound understanding that you presented, that our Shastras are not written and closed. It's a living tradition. The Acharyas make it a living tradition. I think that is a very, very important insight, because especially in the Eastern world, in the Indian tradition, we don't stick to a written textbook. It's the experiential understanding, experiential interest, insight into these texts, and which is brought into practice. And as you rightly pointed out, the adaptability is a part of that system.
Very true. Very true. In fact, Vinay, if I just add to what you said, one of the duties of the Acharya is, according to Desha Kala Patra, interpret the original scripture without losing the essence, without losing the important substance of that one, and present it in a way that it can be practiced and assimilated and appreciated in the new audience. So contemporizing it time to time is an important aspect of our Vedic tradition.
And I'm reminded again of the Taittiriya Upanishad, which says very clearly, Athayadite karma chikitsa vritta vichikitsa vasyat. In the last part, it says, if you have doubt as to how you have to live, how you have to behave, please follow the wise men of your place, your time, those who are not the servants of their desires. Akamahata. I think this is so important.
Very, very, very nice. So nice. I think I've reached the limit of the time that you all had set. And
yeah, one last question I have, Prabhuji. And in fact, in connection with what you said about the recent Janmashtami celebration, how it is going to be, because that is something which we all look upon to go to ISKCON, and the ambience, have Krishna Darshan, the Julan Seva it could be, and more important is the prasad, the Chappan Bhog and all that is offered. So you had just answered one part of it, saying that we're going to have an online event where we can all participate, and also about the panel discussion on food and everything. So we are eagerly waiting for it. But how do you ensure the prasad part of it? That how do we get it? So is there any way some of our participants are also asked? Is there a mechanism how we can order online the prasadam and get it delivered even during this situation, because we will not be able to physically come to the temple and all those things, at least in Bangalore, the temple of Bangalore here. What is the plan? Is there any such thing? That's one question. And is it available only for Janmashtami, or also on other days, do we have any such online prasad delivery service which is offered?
In fact, as we were talking about modern adaptations, we have tied up with Swiggy and a few other food delivery services.
Wow.
And if you go to their site and place an order within those limits and such constraints, prasadam can be delivered. From our temple also, we are delivering a few items, and we have planned a package in a package arrangement. So the person who goes and delivers will deliver it to you in a package, and he will take away his package so that it is safe for you. And we have also planned food which can be reheated so that everyone can be completely confident that it is safe. You can heat it to a high temperature and then have the prasadam. So we have made these kind of arrangements. Yes, in Bangalore, this arrangement exists, and people can continue to place order and receive prasadam from the temple. And our temples around the country, and probably around the world also, you must just call up wherever you are, call up the local ISKCON temple, local Hare Krishna temples. We have, sometimes the temple may not be known as ISKCON alone, like in New Jersey, in Boston, in Sunnyvale, in Bay Area. Our temples are there, and we function under the name India Heritage Foundation and Hare Krishna movement in India. So like that, there are few variations in the names, but they are all connected to Prabhupada's mission. And one can place order and get prasadam. And so we are making some of these arrangements also. Another thing that we are going to introduce, not yet launched, I'm just sharing this first time publicly in this forum. We are encouraging people, because everyone is staying at home, please make a feast at home. Don't think it is a normal day. It is a very special day. Make a feast and offer it to Krishna, and all the family members get together, the prayers of the Lord, and honor Krishna Prasadam with the family happily. And we are encouraging them, and we are recommending a few dishes to be made, which are easy for everyone to make, which Krishna will be very happy to have. And so that way, we are encouraging people to have prasadam in their own homes also, under the circumstances that we are all living today.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. So that is very encouraging that we are going to still get the prasadam, and rightly, as I said, that we can make all these at home, and that is very important. I always connect the shloka, what we say of Annapurna, Annapurne Sadhapurne. So the Purnamadam Purnamidam, what you started with. So the Anna, the food that you prepare, make it wholesome, prepare, and not just for one day, 2 days, and order the rest of the days from outside. Sadhapurne. Make it every day at your home, and Shankara Prana Vallabhe. Shankara, your whole family, you become dear to the whole family. And so it is very important that not just we do it from the temple. Of course, for our tradition, we know that where we live, the place where we live, that is as sacred as a temple. God dwells there as well. So, so we say Mannatha Shri Jagannatha, Madguru Shri Jagannatha. Where we live is they have also the place, the Griham itself is the temple, and so it's very important to celebrate Krishna's presence every day, every moment. And so I think you have brought us such wonderful dimension through the entire session. In fact, there were a couple of other questions. By the virtue of answering one question, you have answered many questions sometimes. So therefore, we limit our questions. And then, your time is also very, very precious. You're leading such a worldwide moment with a lot of things, especially in this difficult times. So still you are managing to deliver the children, the food and all those things. So a lot of challenges, definitely the organization as such, and you being the senior leader, the senior most vice president, and you will be having all those. So we are very grateful and thankful to you. Before the further things, Vinayji would lead the question, further announcement of the next session. Also in this context, because we did speak about Krishna Janmashtami, I would like to just share with you that there's a thought going on. Maybe in a couple of days, we will shape it out and announce. And I seek your blessings and cooperation today. From Janmashtami, we thought like this, Indica Yoga's Global Festival of Yoga has been a Nityotsava for past 36 days. 40 days we are going to complete a Mandala Otsava of the Global Festival of Yoga. And apparently, if you see here, every time we are making reference to Krishna. And because Krishna is, the Yogeshwara, Yogeshwara Krishna, and Bhagavad Gita Krishna Vande Jagat Gurum. So even in the context of yoga, the festival is not complete without Krishna in whatever way. Even about food, when we had sessions, people would quote as Yuktahara Viharasya, or the guna-based diet which Krishna has. So everywhere we have Krishna involved. So that's where we thought in this, to continue this festivity of the Yogotsava that we are having, we thought we should be able to extend it also in the context of the Krishna Janmashtami, in the theme of Krishna Vande Jagat Guru. So it's going to be a festival continued with the support of Indica Yoga and various other organizations. So I offer my pranams and request the support, cooperation, blessings of ISKCON Bangalore and the Hare Krishna movement as such to bless us and be a part of this Krishna Vande Jagat Guru festival also.
Happily, we will look forward.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Vinayji, over to you.
Thank you, Prabhuji, once again. But just as a quick follow-up request to what you mentioned about the prasadam and making of the prasadam. Yesterday we had a session on food which also included a demonstration. So maybe one day we could also have how to prepare the most delicious prasadams that are being offered. So we can just have a live session on that too.
Happily, there are very good devotees who are expert in making things and share with the viewers some of the nuances of the cooking, and we'll be happy to make those kind of arrangements.
Especially the khichdi,
True, very true.
Temple without khichdi, you can't come out. So
such a simple item like khichdi.
No, but it makes a difference, Prabhuji, when we take it from the temple there. So though we try it at home and everything, but it definitely makes I think that is what, as when we were children, even we were attracted to go there to the temple and have the prasad. So, and you have rightly said the bhavana, bhakti, yome bhaktya prayachati, and all those secrets.
Yes.
For those who are familiar with the Bangalore temple, I think everyone will vouch, like we have the laddu of the Tirupati, which has no match anywhere. The khichdi that we get here has no match anywhere.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Very good.
So with this, I'll move on to make our announcements and come back to you, Prabhuji, for two things. One, how can people connect with you or follow the work that Akshay Patra and you are doing? I've already shared the website of Bangalore, ISKCON Bangalore, and also the Akshay Patra Foundation. But if there's any other way that they can follow your work, kindly let us know. And also a message that you'd like to share with all our participants. But before that, I'll just make quick announcements and get back to you.
Sure.
I also would like to mention to all our friends who have joined us, there are many things that we really need to know about the functioning of the Akshay Patra. What we had was a short time, so we couldn't go much in detail. There are many spin-offs that have come out of the work of the Akshay Patra. They are now into nutrition research. How can you make the food delivered to be very nutritious? Because children need nutrition, and this could be the only good meal that they get in the day. So how can you provide them with the best food is an innovation that is happening. How can you set up kitchens in the quickest period, and especially where a disaster has happened? So they were invited to Nepal and to many other places wherever there was a natural calamity to set up large kitchens in the shortest of the times. And even the technology innovation, the machine that they showed, the chapati machine and many other things, they're all the in-house innovation that Akshay Patra has taken up under the leadership of scientists and engineers like Chanchalapati ji or the Madhu Pandit, the Prabhuji. So everyone has a scientific background and a technology background. So they all bring in their best, and all these are the spin-offs of the work that has uh, unfolded in the Akshay Patra. And the kitchens are the places to see. The one that we have in the temple is a small kitchen, which, as Prabhuji said, serves about 30,000 meals. But there are large kitchens where the numbers run into lakhs, and they have been specially designed and presented in a way that there could be a participant experience, and it uses various things like the gravitational principle, where the work starts at the top floor, and using that flow it moves on to the ground floor, where it is prepared for distribution. In fact, it was also featured on the Greatest Kitchens series of Discovery Channel also. So there are many things that we would like to know about Akshay Patra, the work that is there, the scale, the perfection, everything is an aspect to be looked into. So I request you all to go through this book, a very short book, but a very interesting book called God's Own Kitchen by Rashmi Bansalji, who is known for her other book, Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish. She has written this short book, God's Own Kitchen, and it takes you through this entire experience of the Akshay Patra. Anything you'd like to add, Prabhuji, on that quickly?
No, very nicely you have summarized, and happy to.
Okay. So I request Ram Prasad ji to kindly present us the event for the evening. So this evening, we continue our journey with the understanding of the food. The Sattvic is what we explored in last evening, and this morning, in this evening, we have a discussion, a presentation on the 17th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which looks into the various gunas and their manifestations in various aspects. And this one will be on Shraddha, the faith. The main faith is So Is He, by Swami Brahmananda, who is the head of Shivananda Yoga Ashram Retreat in Bahamas, and he's also a senior faculty of Shivananda Yoga Vedanta organization, and he will be leading us a session on As a Man's Faith Is, So Is He, teachings from the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So I invite you all to join us and stay connected with us. We have a wonderful lineup of speakers coming up till we complete this session, the festival on 31st July. So with this, I now come back to Prabhuji, and also would like to mention all these sessions are recorded and they're available on Indica Yoga YouTube channel. You might want to revisit them. You might want to share it with your friends. Please make use of the resources that is available at your disposal. With this, I get back to Prabhuji once again. How can people follow your work?
As you are all familiar, there is an ISKCONBangalore.org website. We also have a presence on the Facebook and Instagram, and Akshay Patra also has a presence in the form of website and other social media channels. And I'll be very happy. Our email IDs are also mentioned in our websites. If someone wants to write to us, also most welcome. And someone wants to participate in Akshay Patra, participate in the various activities of ISKCON, there is a volunteering option there, and you can write to us and we will be happy to find, according to your interest and according to your aptitude, find a certain kind of an engagement and activity that is most appropriate for you. And as a closing message, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Bharata bhumile janma hoile yaar, janma sartak karo paro upakar. Everybody who is born in Bharata should perfect their lives and help others perfect their lives. So this was the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Our Bharat has a very wonderful philosophy, has a very wonderful culture, has a very wonderful lifestyle, a very wonderful perspective about reality. And this knowledge, this enlightenment can and should influence all walks of human endeavor, whether it's business, whether it is politics, whether it's public policy, whether it's personal conduct, whether professional life. This knowledge and understanding has an ability to enrich everything that we do. Unfortunately, without this knowledge and understanding, in modern world, following Western models, we have developed a kind of a lifestyle, a narrative, a perspective, an understanding which has permeated all human endeavor, and that is everyone should be happy and happiness is sensual pleasure. When you define pursuit of happiness is very natural. Not only human, subhuman also. You cannot take away from that. We all want happiness. The moment there is unhappiness, we'll shift to another situation looking for happiness. And I'm not even saying, the Shastra doesn't say, you negate sensual happiness. There is a place for sensual well-being also. But we can't have an excess of it. And we can't, our vocabulary of happiness cannot be limited to the vocabulary of sensual happiness. That is animal life. Atyantikam yathat buddhigrahyam atindriyam. Krishna talks about there is another kind of happiness which is atindriya sukha. It is atyanta sukha. And we have to become educated about it. And this ati indriya sukha, and which comes about by buddhi grahyam, with tattva jignasa, it comes by understanding higher truth and our journey and discovery and exploration of that higher truth. Tattva jignasa, Brahma jignasa, can become the basis, alternate basis for all walks of human activity. Through politics, through economics, business, through public policy, through education, through academics, through personal life, through professional life, we can be in pursuit of understanding the truth. Tattva jignasa. What is the truth? That quest can infuse and pervade all activities instead of pursuit of sensual pleasure. Alternate to pursuit of sensual pleasure is tattva jignasa, and tattva jignasa can permeate all facets of human activity. And when tattva jignasa is replaced, when sensual pursuit of happiness is replaced by tattva jignasa, it enriches all activities of human endeavor. Economics, politics, everything can become enriched. And it will bring a new perspective. It will bring new happiness and peace and brotherhood in this world. And India should lead the way for the world. Today we have tried democracies, capitalism, this and that, and so many things we have tried. And it has done good in one sense, but it has also created innumerable other problems the world is facing and world leaders are facing. So India should lead the way through an alternative narrative of tattva jignasa. Human society can be reorganized and India can play the leadership role with that knowledge and wisdom. And I want all people Of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, everyone born in Bharat should do this. And not only, of course, that's the primarily those who are born in Bharat should do this. And everyone else, after they become acquainted with this, should help in their own cultures, in their own nationalities, in their own communities, this essential understanding, and enrich their own communities and enrich the whole world. With this, I would like to close.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for reminding us to shift from the pursuit of power, pursuit of desires, to pursuit of knowledge, which has always been the vision of Bharata, one who is pursuing knowledge, Bharata. So thank you for reminding us and also sharing this wonderful message with all our friends this morning. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you, the organizers, who gave me an opportunity to share these thoughts. Namaste. Hare Krishna.